Thank you. Hey, so I'm going to take a few minutes, and if I go over in time, I'll cede it back later when we get to the director's report. And I want to take a deep breath, and I want to engage this topic deliberately and calmly, but I also want to offer some acknowledgments. I know that those in the audience, those that may be watching online, our colleagues in the Fourth Estate that are writing about my mountain lion topics, including the editorial board at the LA Times, legislative members, broad community stakeholder engagement on things around this apex predator mountain lions. I also don't get asked a lot about what I think as a person. So I want to offer some of my own personal views on this and maybe speak a little bit from the heart. It is my view that these lions are pretty remarkable. They're majestic creatures. They have an iconic kind of status here in California. And one of my own personal bucket list items as director, which I haven't achieved yet, is to actually be in the field with our hardworking scientific staff as they're doing scientific research around these animals and actually see one up close while our veterinarians are taking information. So I enter this conversation pretty familiar with the passion and the importance, but also the variety of perspectives our communities bring when we end up talking about these lions, whether it's in the rural landscape or the urban landscape. So I just want to take a moment and look backwards over the last decade because I think it's informative. So when I started as director and having the chance to continue as director under our current Governor Newsom is one of the most kind of pleasurable things I've had the opportunity to do. I care deeply about the department. I think this governor is the right governor at the right time. When I started, what I found at the department was a 2007 policy. And it was a policy about mountain lion depredation, public safety, and animal welfare. 2007. So by the time we got into the spring of 2013, we were having human-wildlife conflicts occur primarily around these lions. And I reached a conclusion at the executive level, we needed to update that 2007 policy. It was 8 years old. My math's probably wrong there, 6 years old. And any good public or private management commitment has to always include the space to look at your policies and refresh them. So we did that. We did a top to bottom review. And this was driven by a lot of incidents that were occurring, and we concluded a policy that didn't reflect the times of 2013. So we built into that policy an emphasis around non-lethal management options when there is human-wildlife conflict. And in fact, around about that time, the legislature was very active and ended up amending our Fish and Game Code, which is the statutory law that tells us what to do on things, and wrote into our code an emphasis, a greater obligation, and it's actually Code Section 4801.5, to pursue non-lethal procedures in situations other than public safety. So let's just set public safety aside where there's an imminent threat to a human because of the interplay between animals and people. So that happened, and that actual amendment passed a 4/5 standard in our legislature. So it went through with almost unanimous support in the legislative arena. And we're in this same space, and you at the commission began to also think about how to iterate and improve. You started a predator policy working group. You, in 2015, started to take a hard look at how to convene the different perspectives and make revisions based on current knowledge. And as we move through this space in 2013-14, our department was pretty clear that our approach to mountain lions had many pieces. It's written in our policy, which we updated. We update them through an administrative order. We call them bulletins. They're available online. And we described then in 2013 our focus as maintaining genetically diverse and demographically viable populations, minimizing conflicts between mountain lions and humans, identifying and protecting important habitats, improving public awareness, and identifying and researching emerging management and scientific issues. Okay, time passes, and then we get to the end of 2016, and probably some in the room will remember this kind of moment in time, where we actually had an animal that was part of the National Park Service's ongoing scientific research down in the Santa Monica mountain space in LA, and that animal was P45. And what was occurring then at the end of 2016 was a very sharp interface between landowners in kind of that rural space in the Malibu Hills, who also had livestock on their property, alpacas in this particular instance, and an animal that was allegedly eating folks' property, and an intense engagement of all the different views. Some folks wanted to put the animal down. The landowner was very confused about what her decision would be. As most folks know, the law allows a landowner to come to us and seek a permit to deal with an animal that's eating their livestock. And a lot of engagement by constructive conservation organizations laying out all the non-lethal strategies, and eventually a depredation permit for P45 was not pursued. But here's what I took from that experience. In my view, one has to be able to learn, evolve, and improve. And I think that experience at that moment in time caused me and the department to learn, to evolve, and to improve. So we went back to our policy that we had previously updated, and we further amended it. And could I get the first slide? So what we did then in 2017 was we came forward to the public and we said, we think we're seeing credible science. It had been emerging, but we now feel comfortable. We're the state's scientific expert on wildlife, realizing that within those polygons, there's a very imperiled population of Southern California mountain lions. So what we did is we further amended our policy. Now it's a little bit arbitrary, I grant, but we basically drew these polygons and we said within them, because of that scientific risk, these populations are so isolated, they're facing a legitimate extinction risk, that within those polygons, we would implement a three-step process. Now, this has often been now called a three-strike policy. I think that's a touch of a misframe because it suggests there's a responsibility on the animal. None of this is the animal's fault. They're just trying to make a go of life. What I would say is the frame is better. It's a three-step process that creates an expectation in the landowner community. Within these areas, we instituted this regional focused approach. Before a landowner can expect to receive a depredation permit for lethal take, we now required non-lethal steps to be taken and proven before we would ever get to the moment of engaging around a lethal permit. We also created an executive structure. We call it the Response Guidance Team. It has all of our experience at the headquarters level, from law enforcement to communication to science to our wildlife lab, so that our regional staff, who are often stuck in the middle between pushing pressures, don't feel isolated and lost in the field, and can tap into the 100+ years of experience that exist at the leadership level. and that the response guidance team is involved in all of the decisions within those polygons. That's what we did in 2017. Learn, evolve, and improve, right? So that kind of brings us to more current time. And in the last couple of weeks, we've had a range of mountain lion experiences. We have the Simi Valley Police Department talking to us about a nuisance and public safety risk they see in their community around mountain lions. We've had an attack by a lion on a 6-year-old child. And regrettably, we had an experience with another collared animal, P56. Now, I want to stop here and say, I wish I could bring P56 back, but I can't. And I have regret about that. And let me describe this situation because I think it informs what we're going to do going forward. So at the end of January, just north of the uppermost polygon, 5-6 miles in Camarillo, up in Ventura County, at the end of January, a male mountain lion that was a collared lion as part of the National Park Service study was killed under a depredation permit we had issued. Over the 2 years prior, that property owner had lost about a dozen animals due to depredation, and some of those losses were related to P56. And over that arc of time, we engaged with this landowner, and they implemented many of the non-lethal measures we advocate. And all this took place even though the event is outside that northernmost polygon. In the end of January, we did issue the depredation permit, and then the animal was put down. And as we got to the middle part of February, the National Park Service put out a press release about this. And for the last 10 days, we've been thinking through what happened. I regret that we've lost P56, but I'm pretty committed to learning, evolving, and improving because of this situation. I think what we had within our department was a situational awareness and communication error. I think if this had occurred within the polygon, we would have much more likely triggered the policy we had admitted in 2017. So since 10 days ago, here's what we've done at the department just for transparency's sake. And I want to reference a letter I received from true champions in the legislature on this, Senator Stern, Senator Allen, Assemblymember Friedman, Assemblymember Bloom, who wrote me on February 12th. And they said, quote, "We write today because we cannot sit idly by as the Southern California mountain lion approaches extinction. Now P56 is gone. His mother died from rodenticides. His brethren have died alternately on our freeways that slice through their habitat. His death puts the entire population closer to the brink of extinction." So in the last week, here are some of the things we've done. And can I get the next slide? It's a little busy, hard to tell, but effective immediately, we exercised our administrative authority and expanded that 2017 boundary, which were those 2 polygons, to now match the boundary of the evolutionarily significant unit that is the proposal within the CISA petition to you. So you can see the 2 polygons kind of called out, and then you can see the black line, and that is now the regional structure we commit to use our 3-step process, our investment and obligation with landowners to pursue non-lethal, our mandatory requirement that the response guidance team is engaged in all decisions around depredation permits within that, ESU, which is an evolutionarily significant unit, and that no final decisions will be made on these permits without executive leadership involvement and sign-off. We've also done a department-wide instruction around this new boundary and the decision structure that's related to it. We're in the stages of preparing sufficient training of all of our relevant staff. Our Region 5 staff down south who've been for 2 years implementing that earlier regional boundary understand it well. We're going to have them become our messenger and help train our other staff. We are going to take our involved staff down in the P56 incident through what we call a hot wash, which is kind of a structured after-incident review to understand whether we have other process improvements we can make. As a for instance, I think it would be prudent to establish a checkpoint within our decision-making when you do have a collared animal, that your decision structure heads one particular way. I do believe we're likely going to end up engaging with the agents, either county animal control or other agents. Remember, we just issue the permit, who are involved in implementing any permits, and that's going to be an important improvement area. I would remind the public, we always have a cow tip portal, which is an anonymous tip line for those who see wildlife crimes in the field to interface with our officers. With the chief of our law enforcement, we're building out a curricula to include in our Warden Academy around how to treat these incidences within that evolutionarily significant unit. I've had some pretty firm discussions with our executive leadership about my expectations. We have reached out to the National Park Service at my level, and we'll take our respective staffs through a joint planning session to understand what our future scientific collaboration looks like. For example, why don't we have more collared animals so we can generate more scientific information? So that's what's happened most recently. But I don't think we should stop there. And let me say, this is where I am truly speaking as my personal views. What our department does in this depredation space is incredibly important. We are hell-bent on learning, evolving, and improving because of these experiences. I think our record shows that. But we can't stop at this issue. If I had a magic wand and I could describe the vision I would describe is one about that Southern California space, say Ventura South. It is one of the most urbanized places on the entire planet. Outside of perhaps Mumbai, India, there is no bigger urban area that is also coexisting with an apex predator animal. That is amazing in 2020 California. So we've got to collectively go beyond just the depredation permit issue. That whole area is hardscaped by infrastructure. We've got to become the world leader in wildlife connectivity and wildlife corridors. We're lagging behind Intermountain West states. We lag behind Canada and Europe. We're gonna complete Liberty Canyon, which will be the biggest wildlife corridor project in the state on the backside of LA. So those of you in the philanthropic world that are thinking about helping join a public-private partnership, it's time to step up. We're going to complete Liberty Canyon. But we can't stop at Liberty Canyon. We've got to go and use science. We've got to map this whole region. We need to do it in a robust, energetic, and remarkable partnership with our transportation sister agencies at Caltrans and figure out the next Liberty Canyon and the one after that and the one after that. Let's use our infrastructure to green up our transportation grid for wildlife connectivity. But we can't stop there. These animals bioaccumulate toxins. We need a strong partnership with the regulated community, with Cal EPA, and we need to deal with that risk of bioaccumulation of toxins that are applied to the land that's causing a problem for the mountain lions. But we shouldn't stop there. I'm aware of what the city of LA is doing and the county of LA is doing. I would argue they are at the tip of the spear talking about urban biodiversity strategies across the whole nation. But they too have a role here. They are a planning level entity at the county and city level. Let's have a conversation when we make local planning decisions about wildlife connectivity and corridors before we make the planning decisions. Let's do all this together. Let's do it now. We have a moment. It may not come again. We do not want to be the people that watch that rare population of lions in Southern California go extinct. I believe that's the feeling at our department. And now I would turn to you, Commissioner, and say what you're going to hear about has connectivity to you. As you know, our department scientists have reached a scientific conclusion. We have reviewed the petition in front of us to protect that evolutionarily significant unit under the California Endangered Species Act. The first step along the way of a long process, our scientists recommend to you the petition includes sufficient information, listing may be warranted. You can't talk about that today, you can't decide that today, but when you get to April, I expect a fully engaged public from all perspectives to be in front of you. Our department scientists say the petition has sufficient information, listing may be warranted. So with that, I appreciate the time, and I think my director's report is going to have to be a minute or less to make up for going over time now.
Yeah, thank you, Director Bonham, and thank you for leading it the way you did after talking about the question of lethal take, because there is so much more. I think the total number of lions taken in the last 20 years is something like 17, but the number that have been killed by human causes is dwarfs that. It's enormous, and so those other issues are bigger by a factor of 10 than at least than the lethal issue, but this the take of P56 really brought that to the forefront, which is good. I think in the end, not good that P56 is gone, but that it really is bringing the discussion to the forefront, because hopefully it'll bring the momentum behind the efforts on all those other areas as well. And I encourage everybody who cares about this to keep that perspective, that as important as this moment is, that should be a launching pad for dealing with issues that are far bigger and need to be addressed as well. So thank you for that.
So we will keep learning, we will keep evolving, and we will keep improving.
Terrific. And you have a partner in the commission on all three of those aspects. So unless any commissioners have questions for Dr. Bonham, why don't we invite the speakers up? And then, again, we're limited. We can talk a little bit. It's now an open agenda item, but we're not. It's not a decision-making. We're just receiving it today, so our comments should be limited on terms of actual action. Craig, please call the speakers. Our first speaker is our seated 5 minutes, and that is Tiffany Yap. Please come on up.
Good morning, President Sklar, Commissioners, Director Bonham, CDFW, and Commission staff. My name is Tiffany Yap. I'm a scientist at the Center for Biological Diversity, and I'm going to be splitting time with Deborah Chase, CEO of Mountain Lion Foundation. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. Are the slides going to go up? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. And thank you to department staff for your hard work in providing a recommendation. And thank you, Director, for your insights and perspectives on this. With the CISA petition and the recent expansion of the three-step depredation rule, I'd like to explain a little bit our reasoning behind our proposed ESU boundary. Do I press? What do I do? Okay. So severe habitat loss and fragmentation due to roads and development have led to the formation of 10 genetically distinct populations of mountain lions throughout the state. So each color here represents a single population. And the black line, as the director mentioned, is our proposed ESU boundary, which we based on both science and management. So studies have shown that several populations within the proposed ESU area have dangerously low levels of genetic diversity due to inbreeding. And if you look at effective population size, which is a measure of genetic health noted by NE, you'll see that 5 of the 6 populations have effective population size well below 50. And that suggests that these populations are at an increased risk of extinction. These 6 populations are divided into 3 genetic groups. So from Santa Cruz to Santa Monica is the Central Coast group, and the Santa Ana and Eastern Peninsular Range make up a Southern California group. So connectivity within these groups is really important for the survival of the populations. The third group is the San Gabriel-San Bernardino Mountains, and this population is the only connectivity hub between the Central Coast genetic group and the Southern California genetic group. And so this area, in addition to the southern extent of the Western Sierra Nevada population, which is circled in red, has been identified by scientists as a critical linkage area for statewide genetic connectivity. So protecting lions in those areas is really important for the long-term persistence of Southern California and Central Coast lions. And so if you look at our the proposed ESU boundary, you'll see that it follows freeways. And we did that for ease of management because these populations don't have distinct boundaries. But we wanted to make sure to include all of the most imperiled populations, as well as areas that are important for connectivity and for the long-term persistence of these populations. In addition to genetic isolation, there are many other threats that are creating an extinction vortex around these lions. Scientists predict that if nothing is done, some of the populations could go extinct within 50 years. And the primary force behind this extinction vortex is a lack of connectivity. The placing roads and development in mountain lion habitat without considering their movement needs has led to poor genetic health, about 100 car strikes per year, and opportunities for human conflict. And that takes us to depredation issues, which are another major concern for these lions. And I'll let Deborah speak now.
Thank you, Tiffany. Good morning, Commissioners, Director Bonham, and CDFW staff. I'm Deborah Chase, CEO of the Mountain Lion Foundation. The last few weeks have reminded us all of Californians' fierce defense and love for our mountain lions. They spark something primal in us, reminding us of our own past and survival. There is a visceral combination of love, fear, and respect for these elusive and iconic big cats. And since humans have crossed the land bridge from Asia, they have been a part of our environment. Despite bounty hunting, sport hunting, and human encroachment into their habitats, they have survived, but their numbers have decreased dramatically. With the exception of a few hundred living in Florida, they are extinct east of the Mississippi, limiting their range to the western edge of North America. Here in California, since Prop 117 passed in 1990, we continue to kill an average of at least 100 mountain lions each year with lethal depredation permits alone. That number doesn't include mountain lions and kittens lost to motor vehicle collisions, rodenticide poisoning, and habitat loss, as noted in our petition. This cannot continue. And the recent death of Piece 56 was especially tough on Californians. With your help, he will not have died in vain. Listing our lions under CISA will help prevent these populations from falling into extinction as they have in the East, and California will continue to be a leading example to other states, saving America's lion for our kids and our grandkids. Aldo Leopold, an American environmentalist, asks us all to think like a mountain. It is our duty as stewards of our lands to listen objectively to the howl of the wolf, the cry of the coyote, and the call of the mountain lion. As a deep, chesty bawl echoes from rim rock to rim rock, rolls down the mountain, and fades into the far blackness of the night, it is an outburst of wild, defiant sorrow and of contempt for all the adversities of the world. Every living thing, and perhaps many a dead one as well, pays heed to that call. On behalf of Californians that love our lions, I want to thank you for listening to us today. And I want to offer special thanks to the Department of Fish and Wildlife for their welcome act in recommending to you that listing under CISA for California lions along the Central Coast and in Southern California may be warranted. We are also grateful to Director Bonham for taking swift action after the death of P56 to expand the boundaries wherein which the three strikes policy will be deployed. We look forward to working with the department to keep people, pets, livestock, and mountain lions safe as we work together to ensure this species' existence. Saving our wildlife is the responsibility of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Craig, will you call the other speakers, please? And again, as we're going to be discussing this in April in depth, I would ask that you be brief, and if you want to just endorse comments before you, please do so rather than repeat them.
Kimberly Boster, Fauna Tomlinson, Erin Haug, Kirk Wilbur, Noel Kramers, Brandon Dawson, Brendan Cummings, Dr. Anushka Drescher, Piper Crussell.
You know what, there are a lot more speakers than there were when I first asked, and so I'm going to say we're going to limit it to 2 minutes each. I'm sorry to do that to you, but we've got a very long day today. But please, come on up and state your name and your organization, if you will.
Good morning, all. My name is Erin Hauge, here on behalf of Project Coyote today. First of all, I want to thank the department for its transparency and for its ongoing commitment to learning, evolving, and improving for mountain lions. I support the department's recommendation for this CISA listing for these populations of mountain lions. And part of the commission's mission is to manage wildlife for its ecological value. And so mountain lions have untold ecological value that we're really just beginning to understand the integral roles that they play in keeping ecosystems in balance. So we need these mountain lions, and they're running out of time. They face, as you already know, habitat loss, rodenticide ingestion, car collisions, and poaching every single day. And the one known remaining breeding mountain lion in the Santa Monica Mountains could collide with any one of these disasters at any time. So please do the right thing and approve CISA listing for the mountain lions in Southern California and the Central Coast. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming today.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Kim Booster. I'm a Program Associate for Project Coyote, and thank you for allowing us to speak on this item. After Charles' speech, I really don't have a lot more to say, so I'm just going to do just a few things, and hopefully we can make sense of this. Basically, I've seen five mountain lions myself while riding my mountain bike through the mountains. And the last one I saw, though, was when I was actually driving to a Fish and Wildlife meeting, and it crossed 5 lanes plus a median on Highway 5. So yes, this is a very important issue to protect these lions. Mountain lions in these regions that Charles mentioned, and also CBD, is mountain lions in these regions are running out of time, and these distinct populations will likely go extinct within the next decade. Mountain lions in these regions face many threats besides activated depredation permits. Habitat loss, death by car collisions, poachers, and rodenticides are all dangers that mountain lions face daily. We must protect lions because they are our native carnivores and play an integral role in healthy ecosystems known as environmental engineers. Mountain lions provide food for many other wild animals, including gray foxes and California condors. Thank you for your consideration to protect puma concolor, and CISA listing. Learning, evolving, and improving is a great path ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, President Sklar and members of the Commission. My name is Piper Crussell. I'm a program manager for the Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association. And today I am speaking on behalf of my organization as well as the Humane Society of the United States and our supporters throughout California. We support the petition to list mountain lions in the southern and central coast region of California as threatened under the California Endangered Species Act. Additionally, we support the petitioner's proposal to list the 6 identified populations in these regions as an evolutionary significant unit. As detailed in the letter submitted by the Humane Society of the United States to the California Fish and Game Commission and California Department of Fish and Wildlife, we believe mountain lions in the proposed ESU are in need of protection under CSEA because of increasing threats to their survival in the region. These large carnivores are rare, and the loss of one individual can harm the entire population, even in ideal habitats with limited human influence. Yet, mountain lions in the proposed ESU are at risk from multiple threats, most notably from habitat loss and fragmentation, which leads to genetic isolation. Such isolation can lead to inbreeding and the eventual loss of the population as a whole. Furthermore, providing such protection would be entirely consistent with both the text and the intent of Proposition 117. The California Fish and Game Commission not only has the authority to list this ESU as threatened under CSEA, but must do it if the best available science shows that it is warranted. DFW believes there is sufficient scientific information to indicate that the petition action may be warranted, and for this reason, we urge you to consider this petition and support a thorough review of the species status by DFW. Thank you for your consideration.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brandon Dawson, Policy Advocate and Attorney with Sierra Club, California. Here on behalf of our more than 500,000 members statewide, I urge you to advance listing for mountain lions under CISA. For the sake of brevity, I'll just attribute our comments to Center for Biological Diversity and Mountain Lion Foundation. And we appreciate Director Bonham's comments and looking forward to working with him and other stakeholders to protect this wonderful species. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Brennan.
Good morning, Brendan Cummings, Center for Biological Diversity. As you've heard at previous commission meetings, and will almost certainly hear again, some have asserted that Prop 117 somehow would preclude CISA listing of mountain lions, but this is simply not the case. While there are many elements to their argument, it essentially boils down to an assertion that Prop 117 requires the issuance of lethal depredation permits, while CISA would restrict the issuance of such permits. However, the fundamental flaw in their argument is that Prop 117 does not require lethal permits. In some circumstances, it contemplates issuance of take permits, but take and lethal take are not synonymous. This is reflected in both the Fish and Game Code's general definition of take, as well as in the language of Prop 117 itself. Section 4801.5, an amendment to the provisions of Prop 117 that passed with over 80% support in the legislature in 2014, expressly states that, quote, non-lethal procedures shall be used when removing or taking any mountain lion that has not been designated as an imminent threat to public health or safety. This is the provision referenced by Director Bonham earlier that shifted their depredation policy. Clearly, non-lethal measures are not just contemplated, but often mandated under Prop 117. Once protected under CISA, take of lions would have to fall within one of several exceptions or authorizations. While it's difficult to see how lethal depredation permits would be consistent with CISA's conservation mandate, non-lethal forms of take, such as hazing, if done properly and judiciously, could very well be consistent with the conservation mandate of CISA. Consequently, we see no conflict whatsoever between the two statutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brendan.
Good morning. My name is Anushka Drescher. I am representing my daughter, well, myself, my daughter, my step-granddaughter, and all people who love wildlife and couldn't be here today. I want to thank Director Bonham for what you told us today. I didn't expect that kind of a speech. I'm really heartened to see that you're willing to be vulnerable and also passionate about fighting for wildlife. Thank you so much. As a mother, thinking about wild animals, I often wonder, how do they manage in a world that's so dominated by humans, with streets crisscrossing everywhere, with very little places to find food? Our lives are so comfortable. We get our food at the grocery store. We hop in a car to get places. Our houses are air conditioned. But these animals have to have a difficult fight for their daily survival in raising their little ones in a world that has become so difficult for them. You've heard all the scientific evidence for listing, so I don't need to repeat that. What I'm coming from myself from this meeting is more of a commitment personally to do whatever I can to continue educating the public to reduce their dairy and meat consumption, which will take the pressure off grazing lands. And also I work for reducing grazing on public lands such as regional parks and state parks. And I will continue to do that in order to give more opportunities for wildlife. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Morning, Fauna.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for listening. Fauna Tomlinson, Project Coyote. Charles Bonham, thank you so much. I really don't have any more to say. You get it. You nailed it. No more silencing the lion. California loves their lions, and thanks for protecting them. And I concur with what everybody else said, trying to keep it short. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it. Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kirk Wilbur with the California Cattlemen's Association. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today. Our underlying legal concerns with the petition are laid out for you in your agenda, your binder materials. For quick recap, we believe that the petitioned action is illegal because it would violate at least 4 take provisions of Proposition 117, in explicit violation of Fish and Game Code Section 4800 subsection D, which was codified by Proposition 117. What I want to focus on today, instead of our underlying argument, is rebutting some of the responses you've had to our argument. One of them you just heard was the Center for Biological Diversity admitting that while lethal take would be possibly prohibited by CISA, other forms of take could be permitted. I want to point out that, again, lethal take is one of the forms of take explicitly provided for in those 4 sections added by Proposition 117. Therefore, CISA listing would be a conflict or superseding of Proposition 117 in violation of 4800 subsection D. Another argument you have heard is that there's no conflict between CISA and Proposition 117 because Section 2801A of the Fish and Game Code under CISA allows the department to authorize take of listed or candidate species. I want to point out that the courts have found 2801A to be further constrained by subsection B, which only allows for incidental take. That again would be an explicit violation of 4804, which provides for the targeted take of problem mountain lions. Finally, one of the arguments you've heard is that even if there is a conflict between CISA and Proposition 117, you should nevertheless list the species because Proposition 117 includes a provision that it should be liberally construed to further its purposes. That argument's going to fail for 2 reasons. The first of them is that you only liberally construe a statute when it's ambiguous. Proposition 117 specifically unambiguously allows for the take of mountain lions that are a problem, that depredate against livestock and domestic animals. And secondly, I'll end real quickly, one of the arguments that was explicitly advanced in the voter guide by the proponents of Proposition 117 in 1990 was the protection of livestock through the take of mountain lions that depredate. So the voters, when they voted for Proposition 117, viewed it as an explicit portion of that act that it would protect livestock. You cannot violate that by listing it under CISA. Thank you.
Good morning, Noelle Kramers with the California Farm Bureau. I don't envy the position that you're in. This is going to be a challenging decision for you in April, and likely it will end up being decided in the courts because I think there is pretty clear statutory direction on what the commission is and is not allowed to do for mountain lions. What I want to talk about today, though, is the impact that this issue is having on our members directly. I already know of one who's been denied a depredation permit after losing livestock because of the new issuance of the policy. I would be happy to sit down and figure out solutions to this. I understand the passions on both sides. This is a very challenging issue, but at the end of the day, we do need to figure out how we can deal and manage mountain lions that are killing animals that are owned by our members. At the end of the day, we need to figure that out. I really appreciate the directors speaking from the heart, and I want to speak from my heart too. I have traveled throughout many parts of rural California, both personally and professionally. I enjoy running. I make choices not to run in certain parts of the state because I am fearful of getting attacked by a mountain lion. I'm concerned that the policy that was recently expanded to a much greater part of the state threatens people, that mountain lions will become bolder just as coyotes have become bolder. And we are putting California citizens at risk by refusing to deal with mountain lions that lose their fear of people And I hope that we can be thoughtful in moving forward as to how we figure out how to manage this challenging situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Any other speakers? I'd like to turn the mic back over to Director Bonham for a moment.
So, thank you, Noel. I think pretty highly of your engagement as an advocate on behalf of your entity. I too realize the complexity of these particular issues. But to clarify a few important points, the expansion of that boundary line is applicable to the depredation component. The department has maintained consistently in 2003, again in 2013, also in 2017, that a public safety situation is a distinct and different situation. And for transparency's sake, in the last 24 hours, the department has actually euthanized an animal in the San Francisco area in the South Bay, which has been reported about because the animal attacked a 6-year-old. We took an abundance of caution, made sure we had an exact DNA match between the animal we trapped and the DNA on the victim. And public safety remains that kind of top priority. I believe more what we were discussing today is a different space, and that is the space around depredation. But I'd also say, because we don't do much of self-publication or kind of, our own outreach in media when things occur in the field, we have such dedicated people who are working day in and day out in the middle of these situations. The fact is, we basically built and live in animal habitat. Like 2/3 of this state is mountain lion habitat, and we continue to build into it. So in the spirit of a good news story, to some degree, on Saturday morning of February 15th, we were notified by a Malibu resident that there was a young lion in a backyard near the Ventura-LA County line border. So our staff responded to the location, identified the young animal. We estimated it to be about 1 to 2 years old. It was thin, but in an overall good condition. So we convened our executive leadership group to advise the staff on how to deal with the situation then and there in the field. It was the opinion of our team that the young lion most likely was kicked out of its mother's unit. That's nature. That's how it works. And that it had inadvertently wandered into the backyard and then just hunkered down on the property. So we assessed that we would place the lion back into the wild in a riparian area where food and water would be available. Based on the condition and behavior of the animal, we determined it did not need veterinarian care. We also recognized the animal was part of the Santa Monica, San Gabriel Mountains population. We knew we should try to get data at that moment. Information would be useful. We tranquilized the animal. We relocated it to a wild riparian area. It successfully recovered from the tranquilizer. We went back to the release site the following day. Animal was not in the area. There was no evidence it still remained there. So at our department, we are stuck between those experiences, trying to learn, evolve, and improve consistently, which I think the public expects from us. The public safety experience with a 6-year-old. And I just encourage each of you to avail yourselves of the public process. And I know the commission will be incredibly thoughtful when we get to its April meeting here in Sacramento.
Great. Thank you, Director Bonham. I want to ask any commissioners have any questions or comments. I would just make a couple of quick non-substantive ones. One is we will certainly be advised by our attorneys on the complex issue of 117 versus CEQA in order to make the decision we need to make next in April. But for right now, it was really terrific information. I also really deeply appreciate not just the substance, but the tone and where it comes from and what Director Bonham said today. It's a very complex issue that people are very emotional about for good reason. on all sides of it. And I also want to call out Noel, saying that, you know, we all are going to work together on this, and it's not, whatever we do on a listing is not an ending point, but a starting point, as it has been on other issues. Less complex than this. It was going to require all stakeholders to work together to preserve this species. It is enormously complex, and in the end, you know, human safety is a separate issue and a distinct issue in some ways, although it's intertwined with the rest as well. The good news is that the 6-year-old was only had minor injuries and is fine, and this commission is, you know, concerned about all the safety of the animals and the safety of human beings. And so we're going to work to provide our leadership the best we can in partnership with a department that shows really deep concern for this issue to try to find the best solutions possible in a very difficult situation. So with that, there's no action today. It's just, do we actually take a motion on receiving it? I think I think we take a motion on the staff's recommendation to receive it. Yeah, it's a real simple motion. I got it. I have it here. I move that the commission adopt the staff's recommendation on item number 7 for on the consent calendar.
I'll second.
A motion made by me, seconded by Commissioner Hosser-Carmison. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.